Hi, this is Ron Martinson of ronmartblog.com, and today we're going to take a look at Pixelmator. This is a tool that's designed to be like an inexpensive version of Photoshop, or more closely to Photoshop Elements. And it's available on the App Store. That's only like $30, so it's pretty cheap. And one of my readers asked me to take a look at it, so I thought I'd show you here. So we're going to go ahead and just bypass this dialog here and drop it in here. And we're going to play around with some things that you can do in Pixelmator. Well, first of all, you can create layers, which is nice. So I can come in here and do a duplicate. And just for the sake of being silly here, I'll do a desaturate. And then I'll change the opacity of that layer. So you can see you've got some basic support for layers. There's also blend modes that I could come in here and say screen, soft light, all the kind of things you're used to in Photoshop. And you can see before and after. So let me go ahead and discard that layer. And we do that, just hit minus. We'll go ahead and duplicate our layer again. And this time, let's play around with some things. Now, if we look at this layer, we'll see that, let's say this spot here is bothering us. We want to heal it like we would do in Photoshop. Well, over here, they had the healing brush just like you have in Photoshop. So I'll come in here, and voila, it's gone. If I don't like the way it's looking, just do that. I can press the Z key and press the Alt key and back off. I can come over here and I can double click on the zoom, or I can press the space bar, use the hand to move around like I would in regular Photoshop. There's all the things you're used to in Photoshop, like sponge and smudge, dodge, burn, stamp, heal, red eye, which is more of an elements feature, magic eraser. I believe this one here is one of the bad things. The tooltips don't always come very well. Blur, sharpen. So pretty much all you need for your basic stuff. Now, one thing I did find a little bit odd was that selecting was a little weird to me. But the quick selection is very good. So let's just show you, like if I wanted to select an eye. When I start to draw around this eye, it creates this box, which I find really kind of distressing. I don't like the way it does that, but you get used to it. So I'll do a Command D to deselect that, just like in Photoshop. Oh, there it is. And if I come over here, as I drag, it starts to show me what's going to be selected, which is kind of clever. It's a little distressing too, to be quite honest. And then I can deselect areas. So if I come over here, press this, press the Alt key, and put a box around that, that'll deselect that. And if I want to add areas, I could do that. And once I have something selected, it's just good old Photoshop at this point. So if I wanted to do something, let's just say we're going to burn, and I'm still constrained within the selection, just like in Photoshop. I can't go outside my selection. And so now let's suppose we want to soften her skin. So we could do filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we can just tone that down a little bit. suit our tastes. Oops. And because we put that on a layer, you can see the before and after. This is the same as the top area in Photoshop, that for any given selected tool, you have the different features for that tool. If I come along and do something like a burn, I look for things like fade that I'm used to having before, and I struggle trying to find stuff like that. I have an undo burn, but I don't have my fade, so that was kind of a bummer for me. But as you can see, you still have a lot of things that you're used to from Photoshop. Excuse me, Command Z and undo, and we'll come over here and start playing around a little bit with the filters. This is where things are pretty cool, because you have all your basic filters, and they're decent. Just basically like what you have in Photoshop, like your unsharpened mask and sharpen and so on. But you have some kind of interesting things too here that can be kind of fun to play with, actually. Let's do this 8-fold reflected tile. And basically, based over the color I'm hovering over, it creates a pattern. So if we come down here to a red jacket that we saw before, it creates this red pattern. Now what's weird though is that I didn't see a way to actually see the image underneath it, so it kind of hides it from you, which is kind of bizarre to me. But if you're into creating patterns and stuff, it's kind of fun what you can do just using colors in your image. And there's this weird little tool with a little rope on it that feels weird, but it's kind of fun to play with. So that's kind of interesting. And there's a bunch of these different effects you can do. We saw that accidentally. This a fine clamp, again, based on where you move it, the image moves. And then you can come in here and see how these things impact. You can always come in and say, give me back to where I started. And where things really get interesting is you have cool things like page curls. Copy machine is kind of fun. Check this one out. This is like pretending like you're doing a copy. So you're zoom, zoom. I thought that was pretty fun. And then you have this one that I really like is the page curl. And again, you kind of like see how the page curls under it. You can say, let's just do this just from a corner, like the top corner. And you can see how this works. You can say, okay, this point in time, check that out. So some really nice and very fast graphics for a lot of these. You come down here to the Quartz Composer, and then there's just a whole truckload of additional filters that really pretty decent. I mean, this is really where this thing just kind of blows me away, is that for a $30 product you got a really impressive set of filters. A lot of them are not really my taste, but you can always find an occasional case where hey, it'd be really cool to have a filter that does X, and something in here will probably get you pretty close. Mosaic flip. This is kind of fun. It's like, voila. And let's come over here to Quartz Composer. A lot of these I haven't even played with. There's just so many. Let's take a look at neon and come in here, pick a neon red. Say, okay, how much neon? fun stuff. Come down here again. Now there is some effects kind of like your liquefy, but it's really hard to use. Like if I wanted to, make her eye bigger, you got to start by making it crazy big, like cartoon-like, and then shrinking it down. And that's really, it's not the way I want to use a control like that. And even still, the results when I'm done are like, whoa, that's too big. So you can get it smaller, of course, but it's not really a very natural way to work. So thanks for including it, but let's maybe wait and see what happens on version 3. City lights, that sounds interesting. See what happens there. Okay, pretty cool. Again, I'm not sure how I'd use it, but it's kind of a fun filter. And then let's take a look at another one. Let's go to Zoom Dissolve. And this is the place on the timeline. And so kind of interesting, different directions. And let's see, anything interesting down here. Let's do the fisheye look. Really sexy one. Wall. Okay, I'm not sure really what the purpose of that one is, but there you go. It's got it. There was a cool one that I saw earlier. This is just basically an invert, but a little more of an X-ray effect. It's kind of neat. Yeah, stars, sunbeams. So I can take this guy, put it up here in the corner, make the sun a little bigger. There it is. Strength. Contrast. And change the time. Not really appropriate for this one, but it's just, you get the idea. A lot of fun you can have with these filters. And of course, thanks to layers, you can kind of see before and after. Other noteworthy things, you can still create duplicate layers and do all the kind of stuff you used to, merging layers and so on. There's no channels window that I'm aware of, but you can, show brushes and all these sorts of things, go to full screen. The other thing is that you can open up, select Photoshop PSD files. So if I open this up, I can see that I had a previous layer, and that works. But I have noticed that they need to be pretty basic Photoshop files that for whatever reason doesn't open up some. I haven't discovered any sort of like file place, so that's another thing for like putting your logo in. There's probably a way to do it, I just haven't discovered it yet. And then you have all your basic things like shadows and highlights and so on, that you're used to from transformations and so on, that you're used to from regular Photoshop and Photoshop elements. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed seeing what's possible with Pixelmator, and for $30, give it a whirl.